Hello, everyone. So I have something slightly different for you today. Maybe even more than slightly different, maybe very different. I am really excited to be talking to my friend Yummii Nguyen today. Yummii, how are you? And what are you excited to talk about with me today?
I'm doing so well, Dan. I love connecting with you. And I am excited to talk about things from the heart, to talk about things about our humanity.
What's going on in your heart right now?
Joy. Honestly, like to connect with you and to have these conversations, to be able to share what is possible with people, heart to heart, human to human, just brings me so much joy.
Love that. So what are the possibilities that you help people create?
I help people, really, I guide them to feel safe to remember that love is who they are and love is why they're here. I guide people to be able to know that it's safe to receive love just as they are, not because they need to prove themselves, not because they need to earn it. And I guide people to understand healing on a completely different level where transformation isn't about fixing. Transformation is fully surrendering to the humanity in you, where healing is to make whole. And that peace in your heart isn't because the chaos is over, but the peace in your heart is a acceptance of what it is and to know that this too shall pass. Like the chaos is the chaos for now. And then this too shall pass.
So there's a lot there.
Mm,
How chaos interferes with our process of becoming, how we let it interfere with our process of becoming, our sense of chaos. There's fear, which often comes with chaos, but can be its own beast. What's the relationship between chaos and fear and the humanity of the typical business owners that you might work with or that might be listening to this?
yeah, so this is really interesting. I think so let's work on the premise that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Can you and I both agree on that? The law of thermodynamics is energy can't be created or destroyed. And so if we see chaos and fear as patterns of energy from our childhood, whether it be a pattern of people pleasing or a pattern of being afraid of not belonging, a pattern of being a disappointment, a pattern of not being in control. So there comes a point in time when we see the patterns move into business, and what's playing out is just your childhood wounds in your business versus your business being an expression from you, through you, working through you as a gift from the divine. And so when it comes to your business, and I think for people who do really benevolent work, where we are contributing to the consciousness of humanity, where we really deeply care about human being, and that's what has us create the businesses that we do, to support other people. That gift came from source, that came from the divine. And then somehow we then go, you know what? Let me take over because I'm unworthy. I can't receive anymore. And then that chaos and that fear becomes controlling. It becomes shouldering what is not ours. It becomes really heavy. It becomes an attachment to results and even the carrying of the emotional energy that is not ours. And then we forget that we are sovereign as well as our clients. And we also forget that there is possibility and choice, and that with every ebb and flow that comes with life, there are seasons. So maybe this season you were supposed to serve a particular kind of client, but as you evolve, you have to let that go. But we're so scared of evolving, or we're so scared of outgrowing our current condition that we grip. And that's where we continuously perpetuate in our contribution with our own suffering. And then the business no longer becomes this joy, but it becomes this reflection of our mother, our father, or whatever we didn't get when we were younger. And it just reinforces the same pattern of how we needed to survive that.
That's so fascinating how a business can be a reflection of our childhood wounds. And you talked about how we impose ourselves, we are using ourselves instead of our gift. You seem to very deliberately distinguish between the gift and the individual. Something the individual is doing is stopping the gift from achieving its full expression.
So as a human being, we're both animal and divine. When we forget our divinity, when we forget that we are one, when we forget our own humanity, we become animal. And so the gift is almost an essence of our own love, our own heart, our own expression when we remember that we remember our humanity and we're humbled by it, as well as we remember our divinity and we're powerful with it. But then we're in the way of the gift flowing through us when we become animal-like, where everything's a threat, we're very suspicious of everything, where our behaviors are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, where we are driven by the adrenaline and cortisol, where we're chemically driven. Neither is right or wrong. Neither is good or bad. It just is an experience. But it's like this if I, as a parent, if I experience my children as a gift, I will remember that they come through me and they're not mine, that I'm a guardian of their spirit. And I will create the conditions to allow their truest essence to rise versus imposing what I think they should be. But if I feel an entitlement to these children and I am in ownership of their life and I forget their sovereignty, I will want to control how they grow up, what they think, what they do, and how they should be based on my own projection. So the fork in the road, right? The road less traveled is the one that says, I see you in your sovereignty because I see myself in my sovereignty. And so when it comes to our gift, the essence that it comes through us allows us to connect with it because it contributes to a greater understanding of love. It contributes to a greater understanding of humanity. It is an experience of abundance, of joy, of expression. It is also a connection to the seasons, the rhythms of life, such that our business can go in the ebb and flow and that we're not gripping. And so when the individual forgets that it is part of a universe, I think the individual becomes really controlling. I mean, I'm not immune to that. I'm not immune to that. I'm not saying that I'm like completely free of that. But when my business is an expression where I can use it to reflect to me remembrance, to come back to heart, to come back to truth, to receive, that is then contributing to my own evolution and expansion. So I'm not saying I'm immune. Right, let's just be clear. Very human. Very, very human. Yeah. I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Struck by so much there. That was beautiful. So you gave the parenting example and you talked about how if you impose yourself on your children, you're going to be wounding them. And then you analogize to business. Let's talk about that analogy a little bit more. Is it true that like a parent shouldn't every parent is going to wound every child. That's just the nature of the beast. But we try to diminish it to the extent we can. Is the same true of business where the business wants to be? You're a guardian, just like you're a guardian as a parent. Does that analogy hold where we want the business to be what it is and we don't want to impose ourselves on it?
Oh, that's interesting. So I see it more like the business is an expression of art and it is a canvas where you get to express what is in your heart. However, the business also serves you in your own becoming, right? So I can't, this is really, really interesting because the analogy that I use with parenting, I don't think it can be transferred over to business because in parenting, you've got two sovereign beings. Whereas in business, there is an expression of something, but I don't think it's a sovereign being. I think it's an expression that gets to be created out there. However, your business is not you because it can't capture the fullest essence of you. And it serves at a moment in time for you to express what's in your heart, but as well, you receive back a remembrance of who you are. And so the way that I see business, and I've had many businesses, is like an artist where the artist, as the artist evolves, the song also evolves, the artwork also evolves. And I think we're so scared of loss, or there's a scarcity in business when we're struggling. There's a scarcity when we're stressed. And so we can see those parts of ourselves in scarcity, in stress, in control, and we can look at that and go, wow, this is the grip that I have on life. Like what is disturbing my heart? and what part of me needs to die so that I can evolve into the next version or an expanded version. I don't know. Does that make sense?
There's a few things coming up for me.
Yeah.
One of them is playing with the analogy or original analogy. Are our children not a work of art in some ways? And can they not bring up some of the same patterns where they're an expression of a certain aspect of us? They also trigger our survival anxiety, just as businesses do. They are, you're right, they're two sovereign individual beings. So there's a way in which the nature of their infiniteness is a little different than the infiniteness of a business. A business could be have way more than two people involved, three people, however many. I don't know how many kids we can all have, but probably not as many as a business could employ, right? And so there are a lot of core similarities where, look, in most conventional situations, two people give birth to a child. You could theoretically have hundreds of people giving birth, thousands of people giving birth to a business, right? And I think there is a way in which, let's say it's more complex because there's so much complexity in parenting. And I think a good business is the interesting businesses anyway. The interesting businesses really are ones in which they're an expression of the art of multiple founders. There's always a limit. It's interesting that there's always a limit. And this is not to criticize businesses with one founder like yours, but there's an interesting moment of complexity when a second founder participates. And that moment of complexity brings with it a lot of possibility, a lot of risk as well, right? A lot of risk. And there's a level of abundance that in almost all cases, not all, but in almost all cases can only be reached with a willingness to play with multiple people's art and somehow create a canvas where multiple people are making brushstrokes. And I know for me originally, that was a very hard amount of control to give up. My childhood wounds didn't want other people touching the paintbrush. And my God, there's so much more abundance now that I've let that happen. So much more.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that leaves us, but the analogy is super interesting. It's so rich, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So it's interesting you said our children are a piece of art. They're not my piece of art. They're sources. Right. And if we bring that analogy to, let's say, can I be fulfilled on my own? Yes. And there's a certain experience of life. And the moment that I'm married, right? Like, let's say, because I don't have, like the moment that I'm married now, there's two people and the expression of marriage is what we're contributing to. But that marriage doesn't determine my wholeness. That marriage doesn't determine my divinity. And there's two people who are contributing their expression to this canvas called marriage. And it can go either way. Yet the expression doesn't determine the wholeness, the oneness, or what is possible. The expression of it doesn't, like, let's say it falls apart. It doesn't mean that now we're two broken people. It just means that we're two people that came together that created this expression called marriage and it didn't work out. And it had lessons in that and there was creative expression in that. And I think that's the thing with the difference between business and parenting, where, the human being gets in the way of the expression when we identify with it, when we want to take ownership on it, when we make meaning from it, when we place our value, our worth in that. Yet our value and our worth as an infinite spiritual being having a human experience is infinite. You can't place a number on that. But when you see parenting as an expression, like my children came through me so that I could express myself through a paradigm called parenting. And that's the same with business. My gift came through me so I could express myself through this paradigm called business. And then through that, I get to explore and remember more of the self in all its aspects and all its different fractals if we're going to go down the rabbit hole. And in being able to see all these fractals and all these parts of my light and my darkness through the expression of business, may I remember who I truly am and come home to the truth of my human being and my divinity.
Yes.
And compassion, bring leadership, bring courage, bring spirit, like what is needed to bring love to this experience that I'm experiencing in my business that is so human.
One of my favorite mental models is the meaning of life is growth. So everything that happens can be a fuel for our growth. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be a very hard concept to understand. And so definitely I can see how parenting and business can both fuel that universal mission really, really beautifully. And maybe, as you say, in slightly different ways. You had mentioned, I know I'm so obsessed with this analogy. It so captured me that you come up with here. So your children are not an expression of you. They're an expression of the divine.
Yeah.
Is your business the same or no?
It can be. I think the business is the potential for the expression of the divine. And once it's served its purpose, it's time to let go and then create something new.
Yeah. That feels right to me too. And our knowingness of when that threshold has been breached, our knowingness is so much deeper when we've transcended a certain amount of patterning, right? Our inherent divinity keeps us in touch with those sorts of answers.
Yeah.
And so it can be harder to know. It can be easier to hang on to something that has already achieved its purpose if the patterning is so prominent in our lives.
Can I give you like a real life lived example in business that this happened with? So in around 2011, 2012, I had a startup and I put everything in this startup, like the house deposit, quit my consulting, really lucrative consulting deal, just to put everything in this startup. And it was a luxury business and it was really hard, Dan, like so hard. I came from tech and I moved into luxury fashion. But yet there was something in my heart that said, yes, move forward with this, right? So I burnt the boats. I don't believe in plan A, plan B. I am like there's only plan A. I'm the burn the boats kind of a person. Went all in. During this process, I mean, my things got stolen. It was like this tug of war where it felt like 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. I was invited, but on the outside, the business looked great. Like it was in publications all around the world, we were exporting all around the world and so forth. And I remember this moment, I placed my hand on my heart and I said, heart, this is really hard. I want to quit. And my heart said, not yet, keep going. And then there were like words that I said to myself, and so I was like, okay, so we kept going. And then during this time, it was around the 5th year mark, I became pregnant and then we had the miscarriage. And I remember going, okay, what's the first miscarriage? People said it's common. And then as we were about to leave for New York to share the brand in New York Fashion Week, I found out 2 days beforehand that I was pregnant. No, yes, I found out, yes. However, between the first miscarriage and finding this out, I also had another miscarriage in between. Now, the acupuncturist at the time said to me, your body's really stressed and that's why it can't produce progesterone and that's why you can't keep the baby. Your body's really stressed. And I'm like, but I don't feel stress. And that was when I knew that my feelings were a poor indicator of what is really going on. And so when we found out a couple of days before going to New York where the brand was going to be launched, and we had like meetings with the top retailers in New York, like buyers, like this was where my business was going to explode. I placed my hand on my heart and my heart said, the business has served its purpose, let go. Do you know how hard, I was like, what now? And it was almost like those 5 years has taught me so much about spirituality and business, the ebb and flow of what it serves, how to release, let go, like all my attachments, all of that rose up to go, wow, I am here to prepare life coming through me. If I want to produce progesterone, can I let go of this attachment? And it was the most liberating thing to be able to go, yeah, like this does not define me. And it was like, oh my gosh, like this feels so liberating. I chose my child. I chose my well-being. And I remember when I gave birth to him, it was 3 weeks in and this voice comes through me and this voice says, Avery does not care about what numbers you have in your bank account. It does not care. He does not care about your businesses. He does not care how many businesses you have. He cares that you love yourself enough to be able to meet him with wholeness so that he remembers his wholeness. And
so
for
that he can
someone
which?
remember his wholeness.
Yeah.
And for someone that has a pattern in achievement, type A personality, where I never felt more whole just to be. And I remember writing everything down on pieces of paper on what I thought I had to achieve while I'm nursing this baby. It's crazy. And I think people who work with mothers who are high performers and leaders can relate to this. It's like we go from knowing ourselves and the identification of a high performer, addicted to adrenaline and cortisol and achievement. And then we become a mother. And what's needed in that moment is slowing down. And then you go, well, how do I reconcile that part that is requiring so much grace, so much stillness, so much nourishment, so much nurturing with my addiction to doing? And then you're at this precipice where can you step into a possibility that your business is here to serve you and not the other way around? And where we get stressed, where we get controlling, where we are disconnected from the gift that comes through us is when we serve the business. And so I remember in that moment, I was like, yeah, the business is always meant to serve me. And Dan, I would never forget this because I was like, okay, so now I'm going to create a business from a brand new paradigm that it needs to serve me, my family, and my well-being and me thriving. And at that moment in time, everything, like there was complete chaos in how I thought about business. I was used to working 6-7 days a week, waking up at 5, finishing at like 9, 10. And, like I was addicted to it. Like I wasn't stressed. Like I didn't think I was stressed. My body was clearly stressed, but I loved it. I really loved it. And it served its purpose in that expression. Then when I had children, I was like, how do I create the type of business I want to create working 10, 20 hours a day? No more. And that was my...
A week, I assume, not a day.
Oh, so 10, 20 hours a week. Yes, 10, 20 hours a week. That's it. Yes, 10, 20 hours a week. And that's radical for someone that is used to working so hard. And so then now the possibility becomes, okay, this is the game that you create, 10, 20 hours a week. This is the expression that wants to come through you. And this is the number of abundance that you would love to experience. Now let's play.
There are so many, and thank you for sharing all of that beautiful, beautiful personal history and all of the struggle within, because the struggle informs so much of what we think is impossible. So there is not just our patterns, there's society's patterns. Society's childhood wounds, right? Which inform our beliefs about what is possible.
Yeah.
And are also, I think, a cause of why you thought you needed to work 10 billion hours a day.
Yeah.
And so is part of transcending the wounds, I'm thinking, is getting so clear with that divine aspect of yourself about what you really want, so clear about it, and defiantly indicating to society and its wounds, I choose this path instead. And I'm going to declare that it's possible, really going to aggressively stand for it being possible, which paradoxically, in your case, in my case, and in so many people's cases, requires a slowing down. It's very strange that that's true, and yet it is, isn't it?
It requires a stillness. I mean, if you think about any seed that you plant, if you keep digging up the soil, it's not going to grow.
Yes.
And when I remember the aspect of me that is connected to the divine, I'm so humbled by that, because then I realize that any gift that flows through me or anything that I receive, I don't have to fulfill on or think about the how or the resources. What my role in this co-creation is to have faith, to surrender, to receive, to allow myself to be human, remember my humanity, and remember my divinity in the same space. And so children that came through me, I'm like, no, the universe didn't gift me children to then go, okay, well, I'm out of here now. You sort these children out. No, the universe says, no, these children chose you so that you could fulfill on your expression as a parent because you desired that. Now, if you believe that these children chose you, you also believe that the universe is going to support that decision.
Yeah.
Your role is get out of the way.
In a sense, there's an egolessness and an egoicness to that choice.
Yes.
So it is not a purely selfless, like you were proudly, this is so hard to do for most people, I suspect, our audience of practice owners, to selfishly on one level declare what you want, even in the face of supposing contrary evidence, and also at the same time trusting that it's meant to flow through you. It's like an assertion of self and allowing the divine to play the role through you that is sort of meant to occur.
The way that I would describe it is I believe that there are infinite versions of us. Like there's infinite potentials happening at any one time, and there are infinite versions of us. And yet there's one version that's infinite.
One version that's
It's infinite. So one version that is in truth, one version that is connected to source, one version that is so humbled by this fleeting experience, yet so enamored for the gift and reverence of what it is to be in this vessel. And when we know that by heart, like if you I know I'm very, I find artists really interesting because when you talk to an artist, they're just like, I just know it by heart. It's a pure creative expression.
Yeah.
And it's a love that they cannot put into words, but they create it in form, whether it's through painting, through food, through music. So as an entrepreneur, it just happens that our art is the business and we know it by heart. But yet when we forget it by heart and we go into our head, we think it has to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And so the infinite version of us is in our knowing and in our heart and in this divine connection. And the finite versions, there's infinite versions of this finite, are the characters, the plays in our head on who we think we need to be, on who society told us we should be. It's like, say, for example, being a woman, being in this incredible time, Dan, women are told they can have everything all at once and can do it all. Like give birth and have the family, do it all. And that has been so unhealthy. Dan, when I didn't have a role model, I had a broken relationship with my mother, and so I didn't really have a role model of what a woman like that loves herself was. And my only role model at the time, before I was married and had a child, was a mentor and a guide that I absolutely adored. She gave birth, and 3 days later, she was lecturing on leadership. That was my only role model. And she was like, see me? I'm so powerful as a woman. I just gave birth and here I'm lecturing on leadership. That was broken and I did not know it at that time. There is such a reverence for this thing called human being, and no business should ever compromise your health, compromise your mental health, compromise your physical health, compromise your spiritual health, compromise your connection to self. And when a business does that, or you allow it to, and you tolerate that, there is a misalignment.
Very healthy reminder, I think, to all of us. I think to listeners who are ambitious, who believe that in general, the work they do, this is the case with our listeners, the work they do is soul driven, that even the thing that, at least in terms of let's talk about goals, is a representation of that infinite version of you. In the process, in the carrying out, it can easily become something very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
So different. And I just admire your courage so much for honoring what you want. It's a very, very hard thing to do. Very, very hard thing to do. And I'll confess I struggle with it as what I do becomes more complex. I feel the demands of more and more people, more burden on my shoulders. I love what I do. And it's like each stakeholder brings up new patterns, new opportunities to heal, new chances to live into the truth that the meaning of life is growth. And sometimes it just feels like a lot.
There was something that I read recently, and I'm reminded of this as a parent as well. There was this entrepreneur who was growing and growing and growing, and he was stressed out. He's not present with his wife, not present with his family. And he went to this mastermind. And in that mastermind, there was this other entrepreneur he met who had the same level of income for the last 8 years. And in this mastermind, I mean, they were like, 8-figure owners. He was so perplexed at this owner at the same level of income for the last 8 years. And it's like, why aren't you growing? And he goes, I'm happy. And he's like, look at you guys, you're all stressed. I'm here because I just want to hang out with you. But like, you're all stressed. You keep growing and growing and growing. And for what? I'm unwilling to increase my hours. I'm unwilling to grow my team because it's working. And I'm unwilling to compromise my experience of self. Like, this is beautiful for me. And the ultimate luxury of wealth is to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, and the luxury of time. And more money doesn't necessarily equate that. And then, so this entrepreneur was like, it just blew his mind. It blew his mind that like business is not necessarily always about more in terms of the numbers, but it's how the experience of more freedom within yourself, or freedom for the expression of the gift. And so I think what's so important is that we know that we can make choices any time, and we get to decide the game that we want to play, and we get to decide what we want to experience, with whom we want to experience it with. And does it contribute to a greater understanding of ourselves, a greater understanding of love, a greater understanding of our own humanity?
Yes. But one of the most beautiful, and it can seem simple at first glance, one of the most beautiful exercises you can do. It's easy to do in a sort of half-assed way. It's not necessarily easy to do in a fuller way. And that's visioning, self-authoring frequently. It's every month, every 2 months, every quarter, I don't know. But watching your vision shift, even sometimes subtly, knowing that what you're putting down is a representation of that one infinite version of you. You're not always going to understand everything it says because it speaks in so many different languages, right? Over time, the more patterns you transcend, the louder its voice, but it speaks in many different languages. So you do your best to discern what it's telling you, and then you keep doing that because it's going to keep telling you more things. It's so powerful. It sees so much. And as that evolution happens, you can watch yourself get closer and closer. And at the same time, I'm present to how different levels of complexity introduce more voices and yet more challenge in making sure that the vision is still a representation of that deeper truth that you feel so obligated to honor. And that's a really, really beautiful journey.
Yeah, I love how you articulated that.
As we come towards the end of our time together, we could go on for hours and hours, but there's that boring set of things to do out there. Are there any either last words or thoughts, feelings, visions to throw out there to an owner of a mental health practice who feels some connection to their infinite? Anything remaining to share?
You're not meant to carry the world on your own. You're not meant to carry it all on your own. Like, that's not why your gift came through you. You got to trust, connect more with that divine power and ask for guidance, and then follow through on the guidance. Follow through on the guidance.
Yeah, could not agree more. The doing it entirely on your own thing, that got tired for me a while ago.
Yeah. It is very heavy.
Yeah, the whole myth of Sisyphus thing is, it was written for a good reason.
Yeah.
Trying to move a boulder up a hill. It's not for the faint of heart. It will flatten you if you're not careful.
That's right. Yeah, you're not meant to, no gift comes through you without the divine saying, let me support you.
Yeah, you can kind of luxuriate into that. You can embrace it, and it should be easier. It should probably be easier than it is. Right.
Can I share something that I received in one of my meditations around this? There was this moment in time where I felt like I was at capacity for holding space, right? And I think this is what practitioners, a lot of us say, where we're holding space for people. So I take this into my meditation and I share with that infinite divine source. I'm like, I feel like capacity and I don't know what to do. Can you give me some guidance? And in my meditation, it comes through and it says, no human should hold the space. You allow the infinite to come through to expand the space because the space is not meant to be held. That quantum leaped the way that I saw my guidance, coaching, and mentoring. I was no longer needing to hold the space, to contain it, but really trusting the infinite to come through, the infinite of my clients, the infinite of me to come into this space to expand it out.
Yeah.
Because space is infinite. I mean, that just alone changed the heaviness, especially when we're working with, people sharing with us things that they would never share with anyone else, and they're carrying a lot.
And I think our audience here of mental health practitioners are present to how emotions live in the body, and all of this stuff that we carry is heavy at an existential level. It's not that it's more pounds at the gym than you can carry. It's something different, right? It's a different kind of weight.
Exactly.
It lives in us and it kind of crushes our essence, diminishes our probability of bringing our true gifts into the world.
Yeah, when we don't know how to let it move through.
So good to see you, always.
I love spending time with you, Dan.